After becoming a widow, I lived cautiously, never stepping beyond the inner courtyard. Yet someone framed me for adultery, and the young clan chief ordered me drowned in the pond. Reborn and awakened, I crept into the young clan chief's chambers at midnight to seek vengeance. To my shock, I stumbled upon the rigidly proper young clan chief, engaged in unspeakable acts before my portrait. Main text: You vile woman. The Shin family's generations of honor will be ruined by you alone. I didn't do it. I must see Shin Xian. I'm innocent. I'm innocent. Kneeling on the ground, I banged my head against the floor with a thudding sound. Yet my father-in-law showed no mercy, flinging his sleeve away with a harsh flick. Gag her, bind her, and cast her into the chastity pond. Let her defile no more the land of the Shin family. Several maidservants rushed to bind me, stuffing a handkerchief into my mouth. Held down on the ground, I struggled with every ounce of strength, screaming hoarsely, I must see Shin Xian, I am innocent. For 10 years as a widow, I'd been cautious in word and deed, never stepping beyond the inner courtyard, never having contact with any man. Yet 3 days ago, a pair of men's shoes mysteriously appeared in my room. Panicked, I took the shoes to my elder sister-in-law for advice. Unexpectedly, after just a few words, my usually gentle and virtuous sister-in-law suddenly turned hostile. She ordered servants to bind me, dragged me into the ancestral hall, and forced me to confess to having an adulterous lover. How could I confess to something that never happened? My sister-in-law refused to listen to my explanations, beat me with a rod, and locked me in the woodshed. A day later, a servant came forward, confessing to having committed adultery with me for 2 years and presenting my undergarments as evidence. Only then did I realize I had been framed. The only one who could save me was Shin Xian. Shin Xian was my late husband's cousin and the young head of the Shin clan, the most accomplished young man in the family for 3 generations. He passed the imperial examinations at just 19 and now serves as the prefect of our Shentian prefecture. Within a year of taking office, he has solved several unsolved cases. The townspeople hail him as the honorable magistrate of Clear Sky, saying he surpasses even the legendary Baojing from the operas. With his wisdom and strategy, he will surely clear my name and restore my innocence. 2 maidservants yanked my hair, forcing me into the pig cage. My hands dug into the ground as I arched my back, spitting blood-tinged foam. I demand to see Shin Xian, you fool. One maid suddenly leaned close to whisper in my ear. Don't you understand? This is the young clan leader's personal order. Without his word, how could the master dare make such a decision? My entire body trembled. Shin Xian, could it be he wanted my life? What had I done to offend him? While I was stunned, the 2 maids shoved me into the cage, tied a large stone to it, then pushed the cage into the lake together. The bone-chilling lake water instantly engulfed me. Bound behind my back, I curled up inside the cage, arching my back like a shrimp in desperate struggle. Through the water's surface, I saw the towering chastity arches looming on either side. In the night, those arches loomed like monstrous beasts, gaping abysmal maws ready to swallow me whole. I jolted awake, clutching the quilt, gasping for breath. The good news, I'd been reborn. The bad news, I'd been reborn 1 month before my death. I'd racked my brain all day, yet couldn't fathom how to escape this inescapable fate. In this era, Confucian ethics were ironclad, especially regarding women's conduct. A woman must remain faithful to her husband until death. Should she remarry after his passing, it would bring shame upon both families. My maternal clan would never tolerate it. What if I secretly fled the Shin household? But women couldn't establish their own households or own property. Any man could seize me on the road and sell me into a brothel. In this world, there was no escape for women except to depend on men. Yet now, the Shin family I depended on wanted me dead. Hugging my knees, despair engulfed me as tears streamed down my cheeks. With Shin Xian's cunning, killing me would be as easy as crushing an ant. Must I live this life only to be fish on a cutting board, helplessly awaiting slaughter? Drowning was too horrifying, I'd rather hang myself. But then I thought, no, that didn't feel right. If I wasn't even afraid of death, what else could I possibly fear? Right, what was there to fear? I stared blankly out the window, and for some reason, an utterly absurd thought suddenly popped into my mind. Shin Xian, no matter how high your position or how great your power, you only have one life too. The thought ignited like wildfire, unstoppable. I drew a deep breath, dressed, and tiptoed off the bed. By moonlight, I rummaged through the dressing table and found the sharpest hairpin. I gathered my hair loosely and thrust the pin through it. The Shin family was divided into the main and secondary branches. And I was married into the second branch. The inner quarters of both branches were connected, separated only by a courtyard wall. Shin Seayan preferred quiet, so both his courtyard and mine were at the northernmost end of the Shin residence. All I had to do was climb over the courtyard wall. Tonight the moon was full. The white walls and black tiles glistened with a layer of silver moonlight, looking as if frost had settled upon them. Climbing the wall proved easier than I'd imagined. I braced my feet against the wall, pressed down with both hands, lifted my skirt, and stepped onto the top. In one swift motion, I was over. My heart began racing, blood surging through my veins. Shin Seayan hadn't retired for the night. An oil lamp burned in his study, its light sliced into patches by the window lattice. Crouching low, I inched toward the study, then tremblingly reached out to pierce the paper window screen. Time froze in that very second. My eyes widened, my breath caught, my mouth gaped as if I'd swallowed an egg. Good heavens, my great-grandmother, what was I seeing? Shin Seayan was half reclining on a couch, his robe slightly open, his fair, jade-like face flushed with two patches of crimson. One hand held a scroll, the other reached beneath the hem of his robe. The woman in the painting wore half-shed robes, her alluring posture captivating, yet her face was shockingly familiar. Shin Seayan let out a low groan, tilting his head back as a suppressed moan escaped his throat. Song Qingli, I sucked in a sharp breath, my mind completely frozen. Shin Seayan, why was he calling my name? Was he talking to my portrait? What was he doing? Already bent over, I stumbled backward in shock, lost my balance, and landed flat on my backside. Shin Seayan's eyes snapped open. Who's there? A voice echoed from the other end of the courtyard. Young master, what's wrong? Young master, were you calling me? A servant seemed to be approaching from afar. Panicking, I gritted my teeth, yanked open the window, braced myself on the sill, and tumbled inside. Shin Seayan covered the scroll with his waist, his gaze finally clearing. Song Qingli? Young master, what's happened? The footstep of the servant echoed through the window. My body froze in place, too tense to even breathe. Shin Seayan barked coldly, get out. The footsteps retreated. Shin Seayan and I locked eyes, speechless. An awkward, suffocating silence spread through the air. In the 10 years since I married into this family, the number of times I'd seen Shin Seayan could be counted on one hand. In my memory, he was always solemn and serious. When we happened to cross paths in the back garden, he would stop several meters away, bow slightly with his hands pressed together, and never look directly at me. Second sister-in-law. Before I could return the greeting, he immediately turned and strode away. His long blue robe fluttered behind him, his back as straight and sturdy as a pine tree. The maidservants nearby stifled giggles. Third young master is so proper. Every time he sees second young madam, it's like he's seen a ghost, he'd rather be 800 meters away. Second young madam is Shuntian Prefecture's most beautiful woman, yet third young master won't even give her a proper glance? I wonder what kind of heavenly beauty the future third young madam will be. I scolded the maid, Jinju, watch your words. Young Master San holds a position of great importance now. We must not speak lightly. Back then, Shin Seayan was the youngest Jiren in Shuntian Prefecture. Later, after he passed the imperial examination and entered the court as an official, his bearing grew even more noble and refined. Even the elders of our clan treated him with utmost respect. Now, the once aloof Shin Seayan stood before me, his clothes rumpled, his sash loosened and trailing on the floor, my portrait still draped over his lap. It was simply, my mind went blank. I just stared at Shin Seayan, utterly at a loss for how to react. Shin Seayan gave a light cough, lowering his gaze to avoid mine. Second sister-in-law, trespassing into Shin's study in the dead of night, what might you be up to? What might I be up to? I certainly couldn't say I'd come to die with you. Unable to answer his question, I knew the best tactic was to deflect with another. What are you doing? I countered. Shin Xian froze, a flicker of embarrassment crossing his handsome features before quickly fading. He covered the portrait with both hands, pulled up his trousers, and smoothed his robes. Rustling sounds came from beneath the portrait. Embarrassed, I turned away, unable to look at him. Food and sex are fundamental human desires. Since my second sister-in-law has been married before, she surely knows what I was doing. Shin Xian stood up, reverting to his usual distant, aloof demeanor. But you, what were you doing barging into a man's bedchamber in the dead of night? Shin Xian's nerve was truly beyond belief. He was the one masturbating in front of the portrait, yet he had the audacity to lecture me with such sanctimonious indignation? What was I doing? What, are you implying I'm a slut? Fury boiling over, I glared at Shin Xian. My gaze swept over the portrait, and a sudden flash of insight pierced through the fog obscuring the truth. No wonder. No wonder he sought my destruction despite having no grievance against me. Rage surged within me. I snatched an inkstone from the desk and hurled it at Shin Xian's head. You're the one who lusted after me. Unable to have me, you framed me to destroy me. Unexpectedly, Shin Xian, though appearing frail, reacted with astonishing agility. He sidestepped, and my blow missed. I spun around and lunged at him again. Shin Xian seized my wrist with one hand, pinning me against the wall. I struggled desperately, kicking and punching. Shin Xian tossed the inkstone aside, pinned my wrists against my sides with both hands, and drove his knee into the space between my legs. Song Qingli! Shin Xian's thick brows knitted together, a flash of anger darting through his ink-black eyes. Stop this! If you draw others here, I won't be able to protect you. Protect me? I laughed bitterly, as if hearing the most absurd joke in the world. Shin Xian, you're a despicable, shameless scoundrel. We're both destined for the pig cage anyway. Why should you be spared, sitting high and mighty in your hall, while I suffer? We women are worthless, destined to be trampled into the mud, never to rise again. Facing Shin Xian, I finally understood the vast disparity in strength between men and women. His grip didn't seem particularly forceful, yet I was completely immobilized, unable to move an inch. The same held true in power. He could order any servant to plant evidence in my chambers, or have any lackey step forward to confess to our illicit affair. No matter how vigilant I was, a single word from him would condemn me to a death with no place to bury my bones. All my efforts were futile. This was the powerlessness of women in the inner quarters of this era. Even if I lived this life again, I would still be the fish on the chopping block, at the mercy of others. Hate welled up in me, tears spilling over. If I must die anyway, I'll at least drench you in my blood before I go. With that, I thrashed violently, screaming at the top of my lungs, "Help! Rape!" My shrill cry pierced the night sky. Shin Xian's hands were busy restraining me, and in his flustered state, he suddenly lowered his head and pressed his lips against mine. Shut up! Our lips met, and we both froze. A fine current of electricity shot through my body, my blood rushing to my face. I struggled desperately, gathering all my strength to slap Shin Xian hard across the face. A sharp crack echoed as his hairpin tilted, a clear handprint blooming on his pale, handsome face. Shin Xian stumbled back, clutching his cheek in disbelief. Splattered me with blood? Song Qingli, do you hate me so much that you'd risk your own life just to ruin my reputation? Shin Xian closed his eyes in anguish. When he opened them again, the corners were reddened, his voice carrying a barely perceptible tremor. Do you despise me so much that you'd resort to such extreme measures, seeking mutual destruction? What a hypocrite! He's the one who tried to kill me, yet now he plays the innocent victim, making it seem like I'm the one acting irrationally. What a noble gentleman, pure as jade. Pfft. He's nothing but a despicable villain through and through. Furious, I was about to argue further when suddenly, a knock sounded at the door. Xian, have you retired for the night? I have a question I'd like to ask you. Might I come in? The speaker pushed open the door. It was my eldest brother, Shin Xingwen. Why was he here now? Shin Xian and I both startled, frantically scanning the room for a place to hide. The study was sparsely furnished, a wall-to-wall bookshelf, a long desk beneath the window, and in the corner, a bamboo cot and a folding screen. The only remaining space was the square table at the center. Its lotus pink brocade tablecloth, trimmed with tassels at each corner, draped all the way to the floor, a perfect hiding spot. We both reacted swiftly. I lifted the tablecloth and dove underneath, while Shinseayan hastily stashed the sketchbook, grabbed a random book from the shelves, pulled out a chair, and sat upright at the table. Creak. The door opened. Shin Xingwen entered, tray in hand. His gaze swept around the room before he smiled. Xiayan, come, join your elder brother for a few cups. Shin Xingwen sat down at the table and gasped at the sight of Shinseayan's face. Xiayan, what happened to you? Oh, there are so many mosquitoes and flies lately. They're quite bothersome. Shin Qian waved his hand through the air. Shin Xingwen shook his head and chuckled. But you shouldn't have hit yourself so hard. How old are you, anyway? When you go to the magistrate's office tomorrow, people will think some young lady beat you. Brother, you're joking. I live alone, without even a maid. Where would I find a young lady? True enough. With so many maids in the mansion, why not choose a few capable ones to attend you? Servants are clumsy, they can't match a woman's attentiveness. Women lack strength. What could they possibly do? I find them more of a hindrance. The two chatted casually for a while. I crouched beneath the table, my legs growing numb. Shinseayan was tall, and his legs stretched out beneath the table far longer than Shin Xingwen's. I had to curl up tightly, trying desperately not to bump into Shin Xingwen. After a few cups of wine, Shinseayan seemed to forget I was hiding below. He stretched out his long leg and kicked straight into my calf. Furious, I twisted his arm hard. Shinseayan let out a muffled groan. What's wrong? Nothing. This wine is a bit spicy. I'm not used to it. Shin Xingwen chuckled softly. Xiayan, the day before yesterday was second aunt's birthday celebration. She invited a whole bunch of young ladies. Did you see anyone you liked? You're 26 now. You're not young anymore. It's time to start making arrangements. Shinseayan set his cup down coldly. Brother, before the imperial exams, I made a 3-point agreement with father. If I passed the Jinshi, I'd decide my own marriage. Probably still angry, Shinseayan shifted his leg again, his knee bumping my head. Already boiling with rage, I seized the chance, reaching across to grab his thigh and yank a chunk of flesh. If I can't kill you, I'll at least pinch you to death. Now that the perfect chance has come, I doubt you'd dare to cry out. If we get caught, we'll both be ruined anyway. I'll strangle you, strangle you. Shinseayan's thigh was unusually firm and not so easy to pinch. I mustered all my strength, gripping that patch of flesh and twisting it 360 degrees. Ugh, Shin Qian bent over in pain, letting out a low groan. His hand darted under the table, seizing my rebellious hand. Brother, I'm no match for alcohol. I'd like to retire early. Shin Qian issued his dismissal, but Shin Xingwen refused to leave easily. If you won't think of yourself, at least consider the Shin family's reputation. Rumors are already spreading outside that you refuse to marry because your heart belongs to another. Second sister-in-law is as beautiful as a flower, possessing a face that could topple a city. My name was mentioned out of nowhere, and I froze instantly, halting my actions and pricking up my ears. Shinseayan still held my hand warily, refusing to let go. Elder brother, watch your words. If you said that to me, I might let it slide. But my second sister-in-law is a widow. She's lived cautiously for years. If she makes even the slightest misstep, how could she possibly survive? And you know she couldn't survive? Shin Xingwen suppressed his anger, slamming his wine cup down. You may deceive yourself, but you won't fool me. Back when you were studying in Guangyin County, you wrote me a letter saying you'd set your sights on a girl. You asked me to find out about her family so you could marry her. That girl was your second sister-in-law, Song Qingli. She was already betrothed to your second brother at the time. You held a grudge over it, refusing to marry anyone else for her sake. Is that right? I was stunned, and in a daze, an old memory surfaced. Back then, before I was married off, I stayed for a while at my maternal grandmother's home in Guangyin County. My grandmother doted on me and indulged my desire to go out and play. Once you're married, you won't be allowed to step outside the main gate, let alone the inner courtyard. While you're still young, and no one at grandma's house knows you, go out and enjoy yourself. Spring is still beautiful now, the peach blossoms at Great Wisdom Temple are in full bloom. Though it was spring, that day was unusually stifling. Not a breath of wind stirred on the hillside. Wearing my thick veil, I soon felt suffocated, short of breath, and dizzy. Grasping my maid's hand, I stumbled and sat down on the steps. My head tilted back, and I fainted from heat stroke. In my dazed state, I felt someone pick me up and carry me. The person had a sturdy back and broad shoulders. Two warm, large hands slipped under my knees, cradling my thighs. For some reason, a pang of sadness suddenly welled up inside me. Boys and girls should not sit together after age 7. Ever since that time, my brother had refused to play with me. I wrapped my arms tightly around his neck, rubbing against his shoulder like I did when we were little, acting spoiled. "Brother, I feel so unwell." His fair neck flushed crimson instantly, and the hands supporting my thighs grew scorching hot. The heat seared through the fabric, nearly burning me. When I awoke, I lay in the meditation chamber. Sitting up, I asked Shinju excitedly, "Did brother come?" "Miss, the eldest young master is in Shentian Prefecture. It was this servant who carried you down." I thought it was just a dream, but the touch in that dream felt so real. Yet, that person wasn't Brother Shin, it was Shin Xian. Shin Xian's face was cold. That was 10 years ago. I was young and inexperienced then. "Eldest brother, please don't bring it up again." I harbored no romantic feelings for my second sister-in-law. "If you truly felt nothing, then why?" Shin Xingwen flung his sleeves in fury. "Enough! Xian, give me a straight answer, when will you finally take a wife?" "Shin Xian, when the time is right." Shin Xingwen snorted coldly, rose, and left. At the doorway, he paused abruptly and added, "Xian, remember this, the family's honor outweighs everything." After Shin Xingwen departed, I sat numbly beneath the table, my mind a tangled mess. Shin Qian's designs on me hadn't sprung overnight, they'd been brewing for a full decade. Why only now had he resolved to kill me? Could it be he wasn't the one plotting against me? Was it my eldest sister-in-law? Why would she do such a thing? When had I ever wronged her? Was it that time she invited me to the temple to worship the Buddha, and I declined, saying a widow shouldn't go out? Or was it when she sent me several pieces of fine fabric, and I rejected them all because the colors were too bright? Thinking about it now, I seem to have offended my sister-in-law in quite a few ways. But would she really want my life over such trivial matters? Is she that insane? My thoughts raced, my mind in turmoil, and I completely failed to notice that Shin Xian was still tightly holding my hand, never letting go. A sudden flash of light caught my eye as Shin Xian lifted the tablecloth and crouched before me. "You heard everything?" Tall and imposing, Shin Xian's lower half was illuminated by the lamp, his jawline sharp and chiseled, thin lips glistening with a sheen of moisture. "Don't read too much into it. I lost interest long ago. The reason I haven't married these past years is because His Majesty issued an edict long ago, ordering my recall to the capital. When that time comes, I'll marry a distinguished maiden from the capital's elite families. It truly has nothing to do with you." I coldly shook off Shin Xian's hand and crawled out from beneath the table. "Yes, I'm just a rustic village woman, certainly not worthy of your concern." I brushed off my skirt and rose to leave when Shin Xian suddenly asked from behind me, "Songqingli, what exactly did you want to see me about tonight?" I pressed one hand against the windowsill and turned to face him. "Shin Xian, if someone tries to harm me, could you save my life?" "Who would harm you?" I shook my head, "I'm not sure yet." Shin Xian watched me steadily, his eyes deep and intense, long lashes casting a raven-black shadow across his eyelids. His lashes fluttered. "Don't be afraid. I'll protect you." My heart trembled in response. I scrambled frantically out the window, accidentally tripping over my skirt hem and stumbling. A soft chuckle echoed from inside the room. Why climb through a window when the front door is wide open? My face flushed crimson with embarrassment and irritation. "I like it. Mind your own business." I had climbed through the window when I arrived earlier, forgetting that now, with no one else in the house, I could indeed use the front door. Returning to the bedroom, the maid Jinju lay sprawled on the bed in the corner, emitting soft snores. I walked over and tucked the blanket around her. For some reason, the hand Shin Xian had held was still burning hot, a heat that stirred restless longing. The Shin family had two branches. Shin Xian and his elder brother Shin Xingwen were both from the main branch, while my husband Shin Qian belonged to the secondary branch. The day before yesterday, my mother-in-law celebrated her birthday. Since the second branch had only my husband as its sole son, and I was now a widow, it was inconvenient for me to host the banquet. Thus, the eldest sister-in-law from the neighboring first branch took charge of the birthday feast. I rummaged through the storeroom and retrieved several jade ornaments from my dowry. I had Jinju pack them in a box to present to my elder sister-in-law as a token of gratitude. She opened the box with a playful scold. "We're all family, no need for such formality." "Ah. I adore this white jade screen. Little sister, I won't bother repacking it." "Ha ha ha, this gift suits my taste perfectly." My sister-in-law had a lively, straightforward nature and always looked out for me. I carefully studied her expression, apologizing for having refused her request several times before. She waved it off nonchalantly. "Oh, that was my oversight. As a widow, it's certainly inconvenient for you to be out in public. Oh, and that dress from the other day, I had Leoli wash and dry it, then fumigated it with incense. Remember to take it home later, sister-in-law." The day before yesterday was mother-in-law's birthday celebration. My sister-in-law was spinning like a top, while little Baigur, only 4 years old, cried insistently for her to hold him. Just as she finally took the child from the wet nurse, little Bai vomited all over her. With guests filling the courtyard, my sister-in-law couldn't possibly walk through half the Shin residence back to the main quarters in that soiled dress. So I fetched a nearly new ruchuan from the wardrobe for her to change into. "Thank you for your trouble, sister-in-law. This skirt is so brightly colored, I wouldn't wear it myself. And thank you for having Lady Leoli perfume it for me." I sat in my sister-in-law's room for half an hour, carefully testing the waters. Yet she remained as warm and attentive as ever, a stark contrast to the fierce woman who later ordered servants to beat me. Leaving the main hall empty-handed, I carried the garments past the rockery when I spotted Sister Rong holding a steamed bun, feeding the koi. Rongjie, my eldest sister-in-law's second daughter, was only 7, carefree at that age, giggling and clapping her hands. "Big fat fish, come eat." I couldn't help but smile too. "Second auntie." Rongjie looked up, spotted me, and skipped over. "Wow, that pretty skirt again." Rongjie reached out, ran her hands over the semi-new ruchuan in my arms, and smiled until her eyes crinkled. "Second auntie, why are you holding it? Why aren't you wearing it? You looked so lovely in it that day." "Third uncle kept smiling at you." I've never seen him smile like that before. "Third uncle?" My heart suddenly jolted. "The day before yesterday, you saw Uncle San talking to me?" "Yes. Right by the rockery. Uncle San followed you around, but you didn't even acknowledge him. Uncle San was smiling so beautifully. Why did you ignore him?" A storm of shock surged through me. Finally, I understood what was happening. It was Shin Xian. That day, Shin Xian mistook my sister-in-law for me. He must have said something reckless, leading my sister-in-law to mistakenly believe we were having an affair. That's why Shin Xingwen came to probe today. Standing in the sunlight, I felt a chill run through my body, my heart sinking straight to my feet. As my eldest brother had said that day, the Shin family's honor outweighed everything. They feared I might cause a scandal with Shin Qianan, so they were willing to use such methods to eliminate me. "Damn it, Shin Qianan, what exactly did you say?" I wanted to rush to him right now, grab his collar, and demand answers. But with my brother and sister-in-law already suspicious, I had to avoid any appearance of impropriety. I paced restlessly until midnight. When every lamp in the courtyard had dimmed and Jinju began snoring, I crouched low and tiptoed out the door. Climbing walls was something I got the hang of after a second try. When I scaled the wall and slipped through Shin Xian's window again, my movements were much smoother than last time. Shin Xian was leaning against his bed, a slender, pale finger pressed to his lips. His eyes were vacant, lost in thought. "Song Qingli?" Shin Xian sat up straight, surprise in his voice. "What are you doing here again? You're killing me." I stormed over, grabbed his collar with one hand, leaned in close, and recounted everything I'd discovered. You madman! What exactly did you say to my sister-in-law that day? That was my sister-in-law? Shin Si-Ayen's expression changed. At the family banquet, he'd drunk himself into a stupor. Alone, he'd slipped away from the crowd to stand by the rockery, catching the breeze. That's when he saw me. I wore the pink rituan we'd shared during our first meeting in Gwangying County. The skirt seemed to have lain forgotten at the bottom of a trunk for years, its color deepened, neither quite new nor quite old. Much like the emotions buried deep within his heart, suppressed for years, yet their hue hadn't faded. Instead, they'd grown richer and more intense. Shin Si-Ayen's heart surged. He took a few steps forward, trailing behind me. Song Qingli, you still kept the skirt. That day, these past years, I've regretted it every single day. I dared not challenge my second brother. Back then, if I'd staked my entire future, father and mother might have relented. You wouldn't have suffered these past years. Shin Si-Ayen took another step forward, reaching for my sleeve. My sister-in-law recoiled as if seeing a ghost, flung her sleeve away, and bolted. I wanted to wring Shin Si-Ayen's neck. Why are you spouting this nonsense out of nowhere? We've only met once. Yet you speak as if we share some deep history. You truly wish to destroy me. I clenched my fist to strike Shin Si-Ayen, but he seized my wrist. His dark eyes glared at me, seeming to hold a storm of suppressed fury. Only once? What of those letters? Have you forgotten them? Bullshit. What letters? Let go of me. As I struggled fiercely, my balance faltered. I stumbled and fell right into Shin Qian's arms. He caught my waist with one hand, his voice gritted with fury. Shin Lang, this letter is as if we were face to face. The osmanthus tree in the courtyard has bloomed. I froze in shock. This was my most hidden past. While staying at my maternal grandmother's home, the maid Jinju suddenly rushed in from outside, her face flushed as she handed me a letter. Miss, the Shin family's young master has written you a letter. You haven't even entered the family yet, how presumptuous of him. I tore open the letter, my heart pounding wildly. Nowadays, strict separation between men and women is emphasized. Though Shin Qian and I were betrothed 3 years ago, we had never met or communicated. Why would he suddenly write to me? My hands trembled as I pulled the thin paper from the envelope. Miss Song, the peach blossoms at Great Wisdom Temple have shed their spring hues, while the lotuses on Siming Lake bloom in full splendor. As I write this, my roommate Chu Bai strums his zither, playing the Longing for You melody, a perfect reflection of my present state of mind. I look forward to meeting Miss Song soon. My heart pounded like a muffled drum. Though Shinju called him reckless, reading between the lines, I found myself unable to dislike him in the slightest. His handwriting was exceptionally neat and elegant, his appearance must surely be no less refined. I even felt a flicker of joy. My future husband wasn't some stiff, solemn man. Once married, we would surely live in perfect harmony. I took the boldest step of my life, writing a reply and having Jinju deliver it. During my half-year at my maternal grandparents' home, we exchanged over 10 letters. Yet I never imagined the recipient wasn't Shin Qian, but Shin Si-Ayen. All strength seemed to drain from my body. Dazed, I sat in Shin Si-Ayen's embrace, tears streaming down my face. I never harbored the slightest feeling for you. Fate is cruel, Shin Si-Ayen. We were both mistaken. After listening to my disjointed explanation, Shin Si-Ayen remained silent for a moment before raising his hand to wipe away my tears. He helped me to my feet, then stepped back several paces. With solemn formality, he bowed to me, his face returning to its usual cool detachment. Only in his eyes, a fleeting glimmer of moisture shimmered. The fault lies solely with me. My second sister-in-law has done nothing wrong. Shin Si-Ayen's voice trembled slightly. He closed his eyes briefly, and when he opened them again, his gaze was clear and steady. I will give second sister-in-law a proper explanation for today's events. He called me second sister-in-law again, and I knew this misunderstanding was finally resolved. With his influence, he could surely persuade my eldest brother and his wife to dispel their doubts. Leaving Shin Si-Ayen's room, I should have felt relieved, but a sharp pain pierced my heart, as if a boulder weighed upon it. Tears fell uncontrollably. When I married into this family, Shin Qian had just recovered from a serious illness, his health far weaker than before. As he lifted my veil, a hint of disdain flickered in his eyes. A wife should be virtuous. Your beauty is too striking, why do you wear such bright red lipstick? His tone was harsh, and I was at a loss. Remembering my mother's instructions, that a woman should be gentle and submissive, pleasing her husband, I addressed him as Shin Lang, following the tone of the letter. Shin Qian's expression darkened further. Silence. Who taught you this? It's the manner of a courtesan, reckless and vulgar. I hear you stayed at your maternal grandparents' home in Changning County for half a year before your wedding. Are you still pure? Startled, I immediately knelt on the bed, swearing by heaven and earth. Shin Qian paid no heed, violently taking me. Only when he saw the crimson stain on the silk handkerchief did his expression soften slightly. Your appearance is vulgar. Henceforth, you must conduct yourself with greater dignity than other women. Do not engage in such base acts. After that night, I lay facing away from him on the bed, weeping all night long. That stack of letters still lay buried in my dowry chest. The gentle, handsome youth I'd imagined was nothing but a dream. It turned out I was no luckier than any other maiden confined to her chambers. Weeping, I returned to the courtyard. The moment I opened my door, something felt terribly wrong. The maid Jinju wasn't lying asleep on the bed. Instead, she knelt with her head bowed, both palms pressed hard against the floor. The backs of her hands were covered in blood, swollen and crimson. Seize this worthless woman. Before I could react, a cloth was stuffed into my mouth. One servant pressed down hard on my arms while another grabbed a hemp rope and bound me tightly. My eldest brother and sister-in-law sat stiffly in their chairs, their faces dark as the bottom of a pot. My sister-in-law trembled as she reached out. You vile creature. I once pitied you, young and already widowed, going out of my way to take you out and cheer you up. My husband even blamed me for meddling. Little did I know he was right all along. You wanton woman, you'll ruin the Shin family. Shin Xingwen's chest heaved violently with rage. Yesterday when I entered third brother's room, I knew something was amiss. That stench of cosmetics, did you truly think you could hide it from me? If third brother suffers misfortune, his future is ruined. My son will never find a bride. Even the married Shin daughters will be tainted by you, never to hold their heads high in their husbands' homes. You vile harlot! Even beating you to death wouldn't satisfy my rage. Servants! Hang her immediately! Two maids pressed me to the ground, their feet crushing my back as a white silk cord tightened around my throat. My eyes bulged outward, tears streaming down my face. I wanted to cry out, sister-in-law, hear me out. But deep down, I knew no explanation would matter. In my past life, just because of those few words Shin Xian spoke in the garden, they tried to drown me in the pond without a second thought. Shin Xingwen was a man who always acted with extreme caution, planning 10 steps ahead, determined to nip every tiny hint of trouble in the bud. As long as Shin Xian cared for me, every single mistake, no matter how great or small, would be my fault. This world has always been like this, men cannot control themselves, yet blame women for being the source of all evil. Shin Xian alone bore the weight of the Shin family's entire future. To him, I was like a dangerous dud bomb, ready to explode at any moment and stain his noble, dignified official robes. I couldn't live. I bowed my head in resignation. That familiar suffocating sensation, the same one I felt when drowned in the pond in my past life, swept over me again. My whole body trembled, and boundless despair welled up inside me. Just then, the door burst open with a loud clang. Shin Xian kicked the 2 maidservants aside and pulled me tightly into his arms. Song Qingli! Shin Xian trembled as he pulled the cloth from my mouth, untied my bonds, and gently patted my cheeks. Song Qingli, wake up! You can't die! Wake up! Shin Xingwen slammed his fist hard onto the table in fury. Shin Xian, do you even know what you're doing? My eldest sister-in-law ordered the 2 maids. What are you standing around for? Close the door! Shin Xingwen leapt to his feet, eyes bloodshot, spittle flying. Shin Xian, you've lost your mind. She's your second sister-in-law. If word gets out that you're committing incest with your uncle's wife, how can you possibly keep your position as prefect? Our Shin family produced only one imperial scholar in generations. We finally reached this point, and you throw it all away for a woman. For a woman! Have you forgotten everything grandfather taught you? Everything stems from me. My second sister-in-law is not involved. Shin Xian helped me to my feet and stood coldly facing Shin Xingwen. I'll make this clear today, if you ever harm her again, I'll fight you to the death. You, Shin Xingwen clutched his chest in disbelief. You're tearing brothers apart for this lowly whore? Have all your Confucian teachings gone to the dogs? My eldest sister-in-law pleaded earnestly from the side. Xian, how could you be so foolish? You've attained high rank at such a young age. What noble maiden could you not have? She's a widow. Are you willing to antagonize the entire Shin family for her sake? This isn't what you think. It's all my own misguided affection. Shin Xianin explained the sequence of events in a few words. It was my own foolish infatuation, my reckless and impetuous behavior. It has nothing whatsoever to do with second sister-in-law. Shin Xingwen scoffed. Nothing whatsoever? A young lady secluded in her boudoir exchanging private letters with a man, how can that be nothing? Our family's current calamity stems entirely from her. Look at your attitude now. That incident in the garden, if it happened once, why wouldn't it happen again? Only her death, Xian, listen to your elder brother, only her death can restore peace to the Shin family. The eldest brother speaks wisely. Xian, you're destined for great things. You mustn't be soft-hearted. The door behind us swung open. My father-in-law and the head of the Shin family stood side by side outside, their bulky figures casting heavy shadows over me and Shin Qianin. The head of the Shin family covered his mouth with a clenched fist and coughed softly, ahem, ahem. Son, you're 26 now. You're not exactly young. Spend more time at the pleasure quarters, and you'll see that even the most dazzling women are nothing special. Women can be favored, they can be played with, but they must never be held dear. Letting them cloud your mind will bring down a colossal disaster. My father-in-law stepped forward, his icy gaze sweeping over me as if I were a mere fly. Xian, you were merely impulsive in your youth. Had she not constantly seduced you, how could you have cherished her for so many years? Listen to your uncle, this vile woman must not live. With just a few words, they sentenced me to death. Shin Xian, overcome with grief, knelt before Lord Shin. Father, this is all my doing. I wrote her the first letter. I've been consumed by her, unable to let go. That day in the garden, I simply couldn't control myself. Second sister-in-law bears no blame. Next year I'll go to the capital and never see her again. Why can't you spare her life? Master Shin, how convenient, couldn't control yourself. You toiled for 10 years in your studies, endured countless hardships in officialdom. If she could make you lose all restraint, then she must be removed. Father! This is unfair. Ha ha ha, his father-in-law suddenly burst into laughter, cutting Shin Qianin off without mercy. Qianin, you are utterly foolish. The world has always been this way. What fairness can a woman demand from a man? Has she upheld the family name or managed the household affairs? What right does she have to speak of fairness? Master Shin nodded. Xian, your father grants your wish. Hang her today. Report it to the authorities as a widow mourning her late husband who took her own life. She may even earn a chastity arch. That would preserve her dignity. We'd have done right by her Song family. The door stood open, letting gusts of autumn wind pour into the room. The last remnants of warmth inside vanished in an instant. I knelt behind the door, clutching my neck, and looked up at the moon outside the window. On the day I was drowned in the pond, the moon had been just as full, though shrouded by the water's surface, not as clear as it was now. Under the clear moonlight, the Shin family would gain another chastity arch. When the grand wedding banquet was held, my father would surely be overjoyed. My sisters at home would also be held in higher regard, securing them good marriages. Master Song has raised his children well. Miss Song has kept her chastity for 10 years, truly a touching and admirable story. Ah, that child is so single-minded. Every daughter of the Song family is pure and upright, stubborn to a fault. It breaks my heart. Has Miss Song's third daughter found a match yet? People kept inquiring about my sister's marriages. My father's stern expression couldn't hold, and he broke into a smile as bright as a chrysanthemum. Thinking of that scene, I couldn't help but laugh too. Ha ha ha, but the laughter wasn't mine. I turned, staring in astonishment at Shinseayan. He flicked his robe and rose to his feet. So that's how the Shin family earned all those chastity memorials. What a fine family! What an exemplary lineage! Song Qingli, rise. Come with me. Shinseayan yanked my wrist, pulling me into his embrace. Stunned, I looked up at him. Where? Somewhere we can survive. Guards! Stop them! Lord Shin's face turned ashen with rage as he bellowed for the courtyard guards. Shoot that whore dead on the spot. Who dares? Shinseayan coldly produced an identification token and flung it to the ground. Transmit my order, Lord Shin and his entourage have suffered a sudden fit of hysteria. Lock them up and confine them to show and hall. The entire household froze. Servants exchanged glances, shifting their gaze between Shinseayan and the Shin family elders. Elder Shin's eyes bulged with fury. Shinseayan, you've lost your mind. If the clan learns of today's events, how will you face the consequences? Second Master Shin also screamed hysterically. Shinseayan, for one lowly woman, you're willing to defy the entire Shin family. You're all servants of the Shin household. I dare anyone to touch us. Kill that whore immediately. The servants hesitated. The Shins were a prominent local clan, and Shinseayan wasn't the only one holding official positions. To name just one example, the eldest master's cousin commanded troops in the neighboring county as a 1,000 household commander, a rank not much lower than Shinseayan's. Even though Shinseayan held high office and considerable power within the Shin residence, his words ultimately carried less weight than those of the masters. Several guards, swords and spears drawn, cautiously encircled the scene. The head master of the Shin household bellowed, whoever kills Song Qingli shall receive 500 taels of silver. Their descendants' indentured contracts shall be annulled, restoring them to commoner status. Where there's great reward, there's bound to be a brave soul. One guard suddenly gritted his teeth and swung his blade at me. Shinseayan snatched the sword from his grasp and delivered a vicious kick to the guard's chest. Run! Shinseayan dragged me along as we sprinted. I felt like a kite being pulled, running so fast I lost one shoe. The guards hesitated, afraid to shoot arrows that might hit Shinseayan. They followed us all the way to the stables. Shinseayan snatched a horse, hoisted me onto the saddle, and yanked the reins hard. Giddy up! The moment of glory lasted mere seconds before reality struck. The main gate stood firmly shut, there was no way the two of us could break through. Just then, a servant burst out from the side, his face flushed as he forced open the bolt and swung the gate wide. Young master, you must go. The servant proved exceptionally quick-witted. The moment the door opened, he dashed out ahead, sprinting away. Shinseayan burst into laughter. Ah Chang, find a place to hide first. I'll come back for you later. Hooves kicked up dust high as I sat in Shinseayan's embrace. The cold wind lashed my face, stirring a torrent of emotions within me. Unable to hold back, tears streamed down my cheeks. Shinseayan, you madman. You're throwing away your future. Shinseayan clasped my waist tightly and jerked the reins hard. To hell with my future. I only want you alive. The horse charged forward like an arrow released from its bow. Above us, several chastity arches receded layer by layer, vanishing into the darkness behind us. I burst into laughter, then after a moment, began sobbing again. Shinseayan, are we running away together? I'm finished. My mother will be scolded to death by my father. My sisters will never marry now. Shinseayan suddenly reached out and pinched my cheek hard. Song Qingli, you're nearly dead. Why are you worrying about this? I frowned in displeasure and tried to brush his hand away. Ouch! That hurt! You're definitely getting back at me. When I pinched you under the table, it was much gentler than this. Shinseayan chuckled softly, his chest vibrating slightly. His laughter scattered in the wind, clear and pleasant. Nonsense! You practically wanted to pinch a chunk of flesh out of me. My leg must be covered in bruises. Was it really that painful? I cautiously reached out to touch his thigh. Then let me rub it for you. Whoa, don't move. The thigh muscle beneath my hand suddenly tensed. Shin Xian stiffened completely, pulling me tighter against him. If you don't want to make me fall off the horse, don't fidget. Hooves pounded as we raced through Chang'an Street, the city's liveliest thoroughfare. Midnight revelers stared wide-eyed, their eyes as round as copper bells. Good heavens! Morals have sunk to new depths. A pair of adulterers, half-naked and clinging to each other. I saw it too. This is utterly scandalous. Quick, report it to the magistrate. Have his honor arrest these adulterers. But don't you think that man looks just like our magistrate? Bullshit. How dare you insult Shin the Just? Shin Xian and I shared a quiet chuckle. The wind lifted the hem of my skirt. I felt more alive than I ever had in my entire life. Shin Xian had the city gates opened, but that mere quarter-hour delay was enough for the Shin family pursuers to catch up. Old Master Shin led the charge, lashing his horse fiercely with his whip. Shoot! Kill that whore! Shoot her! But third young master is on horseback too. The Shin servants dared not shoot indiscriminately, so they kept chasing behind us. With 2 people and heavy luggage, our horse gradually slowed. Just as they were about to catch up, Shin Xian suddenly yanked the reins hard. Whoa, the horse reared up on its hind legs. Shin Xian jumped off, still holding me. Up the mountain. I know a hidden path here. Shin Xian said he had a secret hideout in Sharp Peak Mountain. It was a deeply concealed cave where he retreated alone when troubled. He led me through winding paths, pushing through thorny thickets. Rain began to fall in a steady drizzle, making the mountain trail increasingly treacherous. The clamor of pursuers gradually faded behind us. We ducked into the cave. Shin Xian blocked the entrance as the rain grew heavier, its thunderous roar drowning our voices. In the pitch-black darkness, I clung tightly to Shin Xian's neck. Shin Xian, they called me a slut. Shin Xian wrapped his arms around me, one hand patting my back soothingly. You're not. I stood on tiptoe and bit his ear. But I want to be a slut. Is slut such a bad word? A gentleman is open and honest. Why does it become an insult when applied to a woman? I've followed the rules my whole life and still can't find a way to survive. Tears fell uncontrollably down my cheeks again. I want to be a slut. My hand slid downward, grasping Shin Xian's surging desire. I saw what you did to my portrait. I want to be with you, Shin Xian. I called his name again and again, a raging fire igniting in my heart, spreading through my body, threatening to reduce me to ashes. Darkness, gasps, cold rain. Breaths intertwined, bodies trembling with overwhelming desire. Limbs burning hot, every inch of flame. Outside, a raging storm drenched the mountains and valleys. Screams piercing the clouds drowned in thunder. I was so happy I felt like dying. Dying like this would be fine. Dying like this would be so good. The Shin family searched all day. At the first light of dawn the next day, Shin Chinhu from the neighboring county joined the mountain search. With professional soldiers present, Shin Xian and I could no longer hide. We burst out of the cave, hand in hand, racing frantically along the mountain top. Lord Shin screamed, "Kill that slut! Cousin, calm down. That direction leads to a cliff. They can't escape. Surround them completely. Today, this official will catch them like turtles in a jar." Shin Qianin and I were driven to the cliff's edge, with nowhere left to retreat. We stopped running altogether, stood hand in hand at the precipice, and Shin Qianin shouted to the Shin family, "Death is inevitable either way. Qianin is unfilial, father. I'll repay you in my next life." "What are you doing?" Old Master Shin screamed hoarsely, his eyes filled with despair as tears streamed down his face. "Have you lost your mind? For a woman like that, you're willing to throw away your life? Xian, calm down. Let's talk this through." Shin Erlao nervously stretched out both hands. After just one night apart, his face seemed to have aged considerably. "His Majesty is recalling you to the capital. You'll be promoted. At your age, what noble lady could you possibly want? There are countless women in the capital 100 times more beautiful than her. Xian, come back. The Shin family members no longer lived like demons. Their expressions changed drastically as they softened their tone, pleading with Shin Qian to reconsider. Elder Shin even looked at his cousin beside him with a pleading gaze. Xiao Yan, why not let him have his way? She's just a woman. We can tell the outside world she died suddenly. Let her go to the capital with Qian as a concubine. How about that? Shin Qianhu shook his head. Cousin, you've lost your mind. A person isn't a cat or a dog, how could we hide her? Official politics are already cutthroat. If someone sees this leverage, how could the Shin family ever hold its head high? From behind the trees, several more elderly men emerged, each leaning heavily on a servant, gasping for breath. They were all Shin family elders. Xiao Yan speaks truth, this cannot be allowed. If other Shin heirs follow this example, threatening lives to bring whores and harlots into our halls, our clan will collapse within a generation. Even the sensible Xian has been bewitched. Unless this vile woman dies, the Shin family will never know peace. As the elders argued, Shin Xianen's face drained of color, despair etched across his features. With a hint of remorse, he squeezed my hand tightly. Song Qingli, I have failed you. I never imagined that even as a prefect, I could not protect the woman I cherish. Shin Qianhu sneered. What could you possibly do to protect her? To protect her is to defy the entire Shin clan, the entire gentry, the entire era. An uncle and niece conspiring in adultery, there is no place for you in this world. The old clan chief clasped his hands together, pointing upward. Now that Chancellor Qing holds power, upholding heaven's principles and suppressing human desires, ruling desire with reason is heaven's will. Do you dare defy the heavens? Shin Xian pressed his fingers one by one into my palm, interlocking our fingers tightly. To hell with heavenly justice. I nodded in agreement. Yes, to hell with heavenly justice. Hand in hand, we took a step back, half our feet already over the cliff's edge. A fierce wind howled across the mountaintop, cold gusts whipping beneath my skirt, lifting the hem high. Xian. The old master of Shinda knelt down, weeping bitterly. Xian, your parents raised you all these years, yet you care not at all. You're taking my life. I cared for 26 years. I care no more. This world has no place for her, and naturally, no place for me either. Shin Xian raised my hand to his lips and pressed a soft kiss upon it. Song Qingli, are you afraid? I shook my head with a smile, tears streaming down my face. I've lived 26 years, and all the days before today combined haven't brought me as much joy as this moment. The wind howled fiercely, whipping my dark hair and tangling it with Shin Xian's. Shin Xian embraced me. I held Shin Xian. Together, we stepped sideways. Embracing the wind between the cliffs. Embracing the grand, boundless freedom. To hell with chastity. To hell with propriety. Nothing could ever separate us again. Shin Xian. I love you. The story ends here. Thank you all for your companionship. See you in the next chapter.